is her parade?
Parade's over now. But she puts the ceremony.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll wait for your cue and then I'll land the spot.
Yeah. Like I say, I'm waiting for you.
Okay.
Tell me something. Does it look like everybody's ready up there?
They're everybody's ready. Yeah, we're ready to go whenever you say go.
My son's in the registry or back. And my husband in the plane. It's probably hard to
Eva, how you been?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Oh. Every morning, 7:37. We're up here.
Oh, you're up here at the coffee shop? Well,
Stop by.
I'll have to start there. Monday started unless someone was and lately we've been on a roll.
Been busy?
No, not really. Playing with the grandkids, motorcycle riding, stuff like that.
Fun part of it.
Yeah, more important stuff. Yeah, my priorities are starting to shift just a little bit.
What's that?
Thank you. Did you say that? Well, it was almost ready. So are you going to stick? Now, are the planes? Oh, okay, okay. So who's in charge of it? Okay. I feel a little violated on these cameras right in front of us.
Don't say anything over here.
No.
We'll pick it up right here.
Keep it clean. Keep it clean. Yes, it does.
Indeed. A real great gallery.
The Chief was just up here a couple minutes ago. What's your name?
We're just about ready.
Okay.
You are a
Yes. Oh, yeah. We had nice chat.
Miss Silvermore. Oh, yeah.
Until it's all done. Not till it's
Where will you be? I'll stay right there. Okay. You give me the way. You give me the way. Yeah. Okay.
That's right. I wish I could talk to you sooner. I would have tried to get
myself.
you know, there's a little rivalry there. You went to Miami? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. We won't say anything bad about Miami. Yeah, when I graduated from OU, we had a rivalry.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, well, ours was different, you know. Like, we had culture people.
And then the other grandfather.
ICRC is ready. So, two planes take off, we go. Did you see my video this morning?
Yes.
I gave it some of the stuff to ICRC. They were maybe but I got it to them. So, everything is just timed off of the reading of the morning. So, they were.
Always waiting for the
What?
dealer is waiting for the signal to start to recover.
Okay. I could only take 2. I'm going to be up when it gets later on. I'm going to try and make time.
Sure. You just tell me if you need me to stretch.
You don't do anything. You just read what you have, and nothing is timed till after your comments. So it's the war dead, and then 21 gun salute and taps. There just shouldn't be anything between. Just don't add anything in between.
Right.
Great.
So,
What? Yeah. He was. I'd say do. I mean, it's better to say it than
all right.
I thought he was in the car, but I didn't. All right, you're go.
Yeah, I gave him the signal. We're ready to go. You didn't have any idea.
Good morning. Good morning, residents, families, friends of Glendale. As mayor of the village, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the village's 2023 Memorial Day ceremony. You may recall that last year, our ceremony was the first one in 3 years. Let's try it again. That last year was the first ceremony in 3 years that had a parade. And now this is the second year that COVID has not been able to stop our parade, and doesn't it feel great to be back to normal? Of course, there was nothing good about COVID, but one unexpected outcome of the pandemic has been the increased use of streaming media. Okay, what am I doing? I often ask that question. Okay, I think I'm hitting this microphone here. Is this the microphone I should be using? Help me out here. This one. Okay. So, there was nothing good about COVID, but here's an unexpected outcome, is the increased use of social media, streaming media, for various village events, so that people who can't attend those events can still watch them, learn from them, maybe even enjoy them a little bit. So let me give a warm welcome to those who are watching this ceremony on streaming media. I believe it's going to be on YouTube. And we will begin with the singing of the national anthem. Gentlemen, please remove your hats, and everyone place your right hands over your hearts as we sing along with Princeton High School graduate Leah Bracknell.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Leah. By the way, this is Leah's second consecutive year leading us in the singing of the national anthem. She graduated from Princeton very recently, and in the fall will attend Miami University with a major in music education. And our thanks also go to Police Officer Gregory Schnell, who began this ceremony with, as usual, a stirring rendition of To the Colors. Officer Schnell has provided trumpet solos for several years now for our ceremonies, and it is always a pleasure to have him here. Thank you, Officer Schnell. First question is, can people hear me now? Yes. Okay. As we Americans like to do on our holidays, we're going to spend a lot of time today with family and friends. We'll have good food, play some games, and relax. And that is altogether appropriate. But now, just for this next hour or so, let's take time to recognize that this holiday is not just a celebration. It is a time to remember and honor those who have served in our military, fought in our wars, and in some cases made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. This ceremony and far more we owe these veterans. In fact, we owe them the lives we lead, the freedoms we enjoy in this great country we call the United States of America. I know that strictly speaking, Memorial Day is the day to honor our fallen, and that others who served in the military are honored on Veterans Day, but Glendale has always honored both on this day, and we are continuing that tradition. So to honor the veterans and their families from the village of Glendale, thank you for your service. I will now ask Reverend David Pfaff of the Christ Church Glendale to give the opening prayer.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let us pray. Gracious God, on this Memorial Day, we remember and give thanks for those who have given their lives in the service of our country. When the need was greatest, they stepped forward and did their duty to defend the freedoms that we enjoy and to win the same for others. O God, you yourself have taught us that no love is greater than that which gives itself for another. These honored dead gave the most precious gift they had, their lives themselves, for loved ones and neighbors, for comrades and country, and for each of us. Help us to honor their memory by caring for the family members they left behind, by ensuring that their wounded comrades are properly cared for, by being watchful caretakers of the freedoms for which they gave their lives, and by demanding that no other young men and women follow them to a soldier's grave unless the reason is worthy and the cause is just. Holy One, help us to remember that freedom is not free. There are times when the cost is indeed dear. Never let us forget those who paid so terrible a price to ensure that freedom would be our legacy. Though their names may fade with the passing of generations, may we never forget what they have done. Help us to be worthy of their sacrifice. O God, help us to be worthy. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. Among the many responsibilities of being the mayor of this village, one of the most pleasurable is having the chance to recognize citizens who have contributed significantly to the history and character of the village. This recognition takes the form of being named the Grand Marshal of the Glendale Memorial Day Parade. My standard has always been service to Glendale. The decision is always a difficult one because in this community of volunteers, so many have contributed so much to the village without compensation. In the end, I could not choose any one person for this honor. So I decided to name two to serve as co-grand marshals of our parade. Fortunately, I do not believe there will be any ill feelings of competition between them, since they're Glendale residents, husband and wife, Alan and Arlene Howeller. Let me tell you a little bit about their service to the village, and I'm sorry for all the planes here. We're going to have our own planes pretty soon, but my experience with these ceremonies has been that lots of planes are always flying over for one village, city, township, whatever. Alan was a real stalwart on the village council, serving under Mayors Todd and Hubbard, and then returning to serve more from years 2014 to 21 under Mayors Hoop and myself. That amounts to probably over 12 years of village council service, which is fantastic, and we thank you, Alan. During that time, Alan, at one time or another, headed every standing committee on council. Among other things, I recall Alan as having a very deep understanding for the village government to effectively manage its stormwater. Several initiatives that began while Alan was on council are now coming to fruition. Now, Arlene chose a different route, non-governmental, to village service. For years, she was member of the board of the Harry Whiting Brown Community Center and worked at the village library. But that was not enough for Arlene. She took on the personal responsibility, nobody asked her to do this, for maintaining the plantings in public spaces, particularly at Sharon Avenue, between the Harry Whiting Brown parking lot and the village parking lot to the east. I think that's actually a practice run by our own Cincinnati River Rats, who will be here later on. Last year, Arlene found a new opportunity for village service when she joined the Urban Forestry Board, formerly called the Park Board. She became a member in 2021, and the next year she became the chair of the board. Under her leadership, the board is continuing to create the Glendale Arboretum, and she has turned her considerable skills to fundraising, in which the first new event will be the Party in the Park in October. Watch the village newsletter for details. So let's have a big round of applause for our co-grand marshals, Arlene and Alan Holwell. Thank you. Now, the main purpose of this ceremony, as I said in the beginning, is to honor our veterans who have served our country so faithfully in the past. In the next part of the program, let's look to the future. Some of our younger residents, elementary school students, have written essays on the meaning of the service of the veterans whom we are honoring this Memorial Day. Glendale resident Dr. Jenny Kilgore and others have read the essays and selected those which they feel best describe the spirit of the day. I will now ask Dr. Kilgore to come forward and present the awards.
Good morning. This morning, 3 young authors are being recognized in this 30. The annual contest has become an iconic part of our Memorial Day celebration, one that is eagerly anticipated by Glendale's 4th, 5th, and 6th grade elementary students, providing them an opportunity to pause and examine the importance of the lives and efforts of our American soldiers and the impact that these have had on the freedom and the privilege that we all enjoy. The panel of judges deliberated to choose winning essays from all the wonderful student submissions. Papers recounted family traditions and shared acknowledgement and appreciation of the quality of life and privilege that we, as Americans, enjoy because of the sacrifice of our fallen heroes. Each of the 3 winning authors receives a beautiful medal to commemorate today and a book entitled The Poppy, awarded by Monday class. So I would like to introduce you to Corin Reardon, 5th grader at Bethany School, who is the 3rd place winner. Perfect, thank you. Second place is awarded to Rachel Everly, a 6th grader at St. Gabriel Consolidated Schools. And first place is awarded to Ella Wood, a 5th grader at Bethany School. Please give your attention to Ella as she reads her essay entitled, What Memorial Day Means to Me. I'll leave the book there, but you hold down the essay.
Every year, I look forward to the Memorial Day holiday because it celebrates and honors the lives that were lost and sacrificed in combat here and overseas. Some people just think of Memorial Day as a 3-day weekend, but it's so much more than that. I remember going to the Vietnam War Memorial in Washington, D.C., and seeing the 58,000 names who were sacrificed their lives between 1957 and 1975. It reminded me of my great-grandfather's military service, Wesley Earl Wood, born in 1896, who was one of the few black sergeants in World War I. He was 21 years old when he enlisted. Looking and touching most of the names gave me a feeling of sorrow, because the people who had fallen didn't get to see the end of the war and the outcome of peace. But I'm also happy that they've been honored with this holiday. I don't think of Memorial Day as lasting one day, but I think we should honor it daily, because those who died deserve respect. We the people must pass down their legacy by doing our part for the country and being thankful for our freedoms. I will continue to celebrate this holiday because as I look at my family, my grandfather and my uncle are also veterans. The next time I see them, I will give them a big hug and say thank you. That is what Memorial Day means to me.
So now we're going to turn back. Can you hear me? Okay. Now we're going to turn back to our veterans. Each year we ask someone who has served in the United States military to come forward and share with us their thoughts on what service meant to them. This year we are fortunate to have as our speaker Glendale resident and United States Army Captain Melissa Gallini. She graduated from the United States Military Academy at West Point in 2010 and served 2 tours of duty in Afghanistan with the 8th Engineer Battalion. Among her duties were the clearing of explosive devices from routes to be used for military operations. She was awarded the Steel de Fleury Medal, which goes to engineers whose selfless service helps assure mobility and enhanced protection for the military. Melissa is married to Greg Dahman, and she is the proud mother of Adrian Dahman, age 2. They have lived in Glendale for 5 years now and feel blessed to have found such a warm community in which to live and raise their son. I will now ask Captain Gallini to share with us some of her thoughts of her experiences and thoughts about military service.
Thank you, Mayor Lofty, for the introduction, and a sincere thank you to the community of Glendale for inviting me to be the guest speaker at this year's Memorial Day ceremony. I'm honored and privileged to have the opportunity to commemorate our fallen heroes today. I believe the proper way to begin my speech today is to share a little of my own family and extended family's history. My name is Melissa Gallini, and I had the honor of graduating from the United States Military Academy at West Point and commissioned in May of 2010 in the United States Army as an engineer officer. I was vaguely aware of my family history in the military prior to joining the Army and never knew that I would be growing into a family with a rich history of veteran heroes myself. My father, Orlando Gallini, was drafted in the Vietnam War and served his roughly 2-year tour in Nha Trang, Vietnam. He and his fellow service members were never properly honored for their service on their return. And as such, my father rarely told stories about his time overseas or in the military. This year marks the 50th anniversary of the last combat troops to leave South Vietnam. Let's please take a moment to properly honor our Vietnam veterans here today, those lost, and those who returned, with a round of applause for their bravery and courage. I'd like to share a little more about my extended personal history. I am married 5 years to my husband, Greg Dahman, and we are proud to raise our 2-year-old son, Adrian, in our first family home on Willow Avenue in Glendale. Greg's grandfather, William Kent, served in World War II in L Company, 1st Infantry Division, known to this day as Big Red 1. William courageously executed 3 landings during his tour of duty, 1 in North Africa, 1 in Sicily, and the last in the 3rd wave of soldiers to cross Omaha Beach on D-Day. William Kent was one of 17 soldiers out of 150 in his company that returned home after World War II following D-Day. I cannot fathom the bravery it took to make that crossing and would like to honor my grandfather-in-law and his brothers who returned, as well as those who did not survive to see the journey home. For those who are unaware, Memorial Day was first observed on May 30th, 1860 in their country. Given this historical precedence, I thought it fitting to share a story of a hero I personally served with in battle. As Mitch Albom once wrote, sharing tales of those we've lost is how we keep from really losing them. I could share a secondhand story of Lieutenant Dimitri Del Castillo, a fellow West Point grad and friend who was pinned down in a valley in Afghanistan during a ruthless firefight, while his wife, Katie Del Castillo, who served in the same unit, listened to the radio chatter and heard his last words at a distance. Or the story of my classmate, friend, and Army football player, Lieutenant Chase Presnicki, who on his first mission in Afghanistan, sharing a truck with another friend and fellow Army football player, was struck by an improvised explosive device and lost his life serving his country. But neither of their stories hit home as personally as Private First Class Adam Dobreiner, nicknamed Dobie. I had the unlucky pleasure of being a freshly minted second lieutenant, otherwise known as a butter bar, and meeting the platoon I would lead downrange in Afghanistan after they already served 6 months embedded in Kandahar province, running route clearance patrols. Unknowingly, I had been personally selected as one of the first female engineer officers to lead a platoon of male combat engineers. A role prior to the year I was commissioned was only earmarked for male officers. After arriving in Kandahar Airfield 2 months after completing engineer basic officer leadership training, I was shuttled via helicopter to FOB Frontenac to meet my company commander and join the 937th Route Clearance Company, 8th Engineer Battalion, 36th Engineer Brigade as the newly appointed 4th Platoon Leader. My platoon was staged at Kop Jelawar, away from the rest of the company, preparing for a week-long mission to clear routes for the Special Forces, which I would join them on as my first patrol as platoon leader. Thus, I only had a couple of days to get my training wheels off and hop a backseat ride with one of my fellow platoon leaders and their soldiers before I could formally embarrass myself with my lack of experience in front of my own platoon. Then Lieutenant Tyandre Ellis, now a major promotable still serving in the Army, kindly introduced himself on his return from leave on the same helicopter I was on and offered me a ride with his patrol. I graciously accepted, scared out of my mind of making a horrible first impression, and joined 1st Platoon in the backseat of Lieutenant Ellis's vehicle, with Specialist Duncan as the gunner and Private First Class Adam Dobreiner as the driver. Now, this platoon was very skeptical of new female platoon leaders, as their previous leader, a female herself, struggled to call a medevac to take their previous platoon sergeant off the battlefield after being injured by an IED. The same platoon sergeant who personally helped prepare me to deploy as part of the Fort Hood Rear Detachment Unit when he was flown home following his injuries. No wonder he hazed me regularly. Dobie and Specialist Duncan could have spent my first mission hazing me as well, but instead they helped ease my nerves on my maiden route clearance mission. At one point, Lieutenant Ellis directed the platoon to execute a short security checkpoint in a town near FOB Frontenac, a place that Dobie coached me each platoon is regularly directed to pull security on to screen locals for terrorist activities. 1 month later, I would be directing 4th Platoon to pull over at the same checkpoint with my driver, Specialist Treviso, and gunner, Private First Class Mao. I would take my Kevlar off to allow young women and children to safely interact with me, as culturally they are not allowed to approach men. After they saw my hair under my helmet, the children ran up with glee, and I had the opportunity to give a young girl a ring off my hand inscribed with the words peace. I pray every day she has survived and cherishes that memento. Dobie and Duncan from that day on always treated me with respect and greeted me in passing. I cherished their kindness to accept me given my inexperience as well. But a couple months later, on November 18th, 2011, after I had many more missions under my belt as Beast 46, my personal call sign, I was executing a resupply mission from Kandahar Airfield to Fob Frontenac and back the same day. I spotted on my Blue Force tracker a device used as a GPS and communication mechanism between patrols. That first platoon was moving up Route Bear as I was passing this route with my own platoon. I pinged Lieutenant Ellis and wished him the best of luck, which he responded, "Same to you." But a couple of hours later would turn to be a day of sorrow and mourning for the 937th Route Clearance Company. First platoon was moving late at night to their last checkpoint on Route Bear when a deadly IED exploded just under the driver's side of a vehicle, killing Private First Class Adam Dobreiner instantly. Specialist Duncan, bravely and without regard for his own safety, pulled Dobie out of the truck when he was unresponsive on the radio to try to save his life, but was too late. We received the news that 937 soldiers were medevaced to Kandahar on our return there, and my platoon sergeant, Sergeant First Class O'Donnell, and myself headed to the hospital right away. There we found Specialist Duncan and his squad leader distraught and wounded in the hospital. When they told us the news about Dobie, I was devastated. A couple of days later, we returned to Fob Frontenac for Dobie's memorial. That day, Lieutenant Ellis pulled me aside and asked me to proofread his speech. He could not hold himself together to try and read it himself before the memorial. Today, I would like to personally honor and remember Private First Class Adam Dobreiner, whose courage and bravery will never be forgotten. Thank you to all those who served, both living and deceased. Sharing your tales on Memorial Day reminds us that you are never really lost, but always remembered. I again would like to thank the community for inviting me to be a part of this ceremony. And most importantly, a thank you to those deployed in the past and present in harm's way, who are providing us the opportunity to live in a free country and celebrate together on this beautiful Memorial Day in safety and solidarity. God bless America and all of you. Thank you.
Give me just a minute here. Thank you, Melissa. I've never heard such a realistic description of combat and getting a real picture of the risks that our veterans, soldiers in combat, assume. I'm going to ask Leah Bracknell to return now and lead us in singing America the Beautiful.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
Thank you, Leah, and good luck at Miami. Hope to see you again next year. So right now, let me just tell you a little bit about what's coming up. We're going to have one of the highlights of our annual ceremony is a flyover by planes flown by a team from the Cincinnati River Rats. The flyover should be visible nearly everywhere in the village, or for that matter, you can watch the flyover on whatever medium you are watching it on. Before the flyover begins, let me take a moment to tell you about the significance of what you will see. First, there will be a full formation of planes that will fly over us. The planes will return, and as they do, one will peel away from the group in what is called the Missing Man Formation, which symbolizes those who have given their lives for our country. Right now, though, I would like to turn to the most solemn part of our ceremony. As we do every year, and I expect the village will do for as long as it exists, a veteran will read the names of those citizens of Glendale who have made the ultimate sacrifice. Please listen as longtime Glendale resident, U.S. Navy boatswain's mate Michael Fasselt reads the names of those of our village who gave their lives in the service of our country. Mike's reading will be followed by a rifle salute, and as all longtime residents know, that will be a good time to put your hands over your ears, the ears of young children or pets. After the salute, Officer Schnell will return and play taps.
It is my honor to present to you the names of the men from the village of Glendale who have given their lives while in the service of our country. Second Lieutenant Maurice J. Dorgan, 24. As he was getting on the train to begin his Army duty, he remarked that the war would be over soon. When asked why he was so sure, he said that he had never held a job longer than a month in his life. Unfortunately, Lieutenant Dorger was killed June 24, 1918 in France. His remains were returned home and he is buried in Oak Hill Cemetery. Eric Sand, sergeant pilot, commissioned in the Royal Norwegian Air Force in Canada in April 1942. He was killed at the age of 23 on May 22nd, 1943. He was a fighter pilot flying a Spitfire in the 2nd Norwegian Fighter Squadron in England and flew 30 combat missions. Ralph Harrison Osborne, 2nd Lieutenant, entered the service June 1942, died at the age of 26 on August 2nd, 1943. He was a pilot, Army Air Corps, was reported missing after his 7th mission over Germany. Subsequently, his death was confirmed, and posthumously, he was awarded the Air Medal for exceptionally meritorious achievement in aerial combat against the enemy. Charles Stedman Garber, captain, grew up on Oak Street in Glendale, was a pilot and the air transport commander. Flying unarmed in a C-47, was shot down by mistake by a British carrier-based fighter plane between the Azores and Casablanca on March 25, 1944, at the age of 26. Frederick A. Smith, Private First Class, joined the Marines September 10, 1942. Assigned to the 1st Marine Division, he grew up on Jefferson Avenue in Glendale. At the age of 20, he was killed in action on Peleliu Island, October 6, 1944. John D. Eggleston, Private First Class, was in the 28th Infantry Division, entered the service October 23, 1942. While in the Army Infantry, he was killed in action at the age of 22 on December 6, 1944, in Germany on the first day of the Battle of the Bulge in Belgium, where he is buried at the Henri Chapelle American Cemetery. Leroy W. Warwick, Sergeant, 570th Bomber Squadron, entered service July 10, 1943. He was a turret gunner on a bomber in the Army Air Corps in Europe, reported missing in action February 14, 1945, of which confirmation of his death was received 6 months later. Arthur H. Curran, Corporal Technician 5th Class, entered the service June 23, 1943, stationed in France, and died as a result of an accident at the age of 33 on May 18, 1945. Edwin Lockett Appling, Private First Class, enlisted in the Marines December 12, 1943, was killed in the action for the island of Okinawa at the age of 19 on June 20th, 1945. His mother lived on Sharon Avenue at the time of his death. Joseph Lloyd Hall, Soundman 3rd Class, stationed on a Navy minesweeper, was killed by a direct hit from an enemy Navy shell near Borneo at the age of 19 on June 21st, 1945. Joe Hall's family lived in 85. Meredith Spears, after service in Australia, died in an Army hospital in March 1945 in Colorado after his return to the United States. Christopher Dyer, Lance Corporal, member of Lima Company, United States Marine Corps, was killed in action August 3, 2005, in Iraq at the age of 19.
I believe the river rats went by once. Did they do it again? I had my back to it. Okay. So that concludes our ceremony, except I've got a few remarks in conclusion. First, some shout outs to people who have made this day special. I want to congratulate our longtime resident, David Hamilton, as he nears the milestone of his 100th birthday. I was pleased to be able to read a proclamation in David's honor at the December 5th, 2022 council meeting, thanking him for his 54 years of public service on the Glendale Board of Appeals. Thank you again, David. Next, I want to extend my and the village's best wishes to longtime Glendale residents, veteran Mike Blackburn and his lovely wife Diane. They are undergoing some health issues these days, but I was pleased to see them here at the parade. So, best of luck to you guys. Next, I'd like to welcome our new superintendent of Princeton City Schools, Elgin Card. Elgin, if you're still here, can you stand, wave, whatever? There's the guy. There he is. Welcome to Princeton Schools. Welcome to, I know this is a return for you to Princeton Schools, and welcome to Glendale. Finally, I would like to thank, from the bottom of my heart, the village's dream team of residents, Hildy Bonhouse, Ann Foster, and Lisa Spalding, who have taken charge of this event. And all I can say is that you three have done a great job and produced another fun parade and inspiring ceremony. Thank you, Hildy, Ann, and Lisa. And with that, we bring to close the 2023 Glendale Memorial Day ceremony, which has a special significance for me because, as many of you know, this will be my last ceremony presiding that I preside over. I am not running for mayor again in November. I felt like 8 years was enough for George Washington and probably is enough for me. People ask me how I got this fantastic weather for today, and I'll tell you the truth. You know, and trust me, I'm a lawyer and a politician, so you can't believe me. Yeah, my predecessor, Ralph Hoop, for the last several years would not tell me where the weather controls were for Glendale. And finally he said, well, since this will be your last year, I'll tell you where they are. So that's how I was able to order up this perfect weather. And with that, thanks to all of you who have attended and tuned into the ceremony, and enjoy the rest of your holiday.